Clonmel World Music is delighted to present a musical mini-series where we celebrate iconic Irish albums of the 1980s and 1990s as part of the government's live performance support scheme. We will revisit and celebrate the albums with the original artists that created and released them. All of the albums are very important milestones in the career of each artist. Tonight we will revisit and celebrate the debut album by Mary Coughlan called Tired and Emotional. Mary recorded Tired and Emotional in Headford in Galway in 1985. She will perform songs from the album, and we will hear some stories about the album and the impact it had on her life from 1985 onwards. We're delighted to welcome Mary Coughlan and her band here to Clonmel tonight. I would like to thank Minister Catherine Martin and the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media for awarding us funding to do this series under the Live Performance Support Scheme.
I got a heart that's broken-hearted. How do I mend it? I gotta cry and drag you started. How do I end it? Well, honey, if you're gloomy, come around and do me. Meet me where they play the blues. People have said they've seen you dance in hideaway places. People have said you find romance in others' embraces. And honey, if you're dreamy, come around and see me. Meet me where they play the blues. Eyes that flirt with a tear and come on round here, and misery loves company, they say. So I linger till dawn while the saxophone wails on, and I'm hoping you'll happen this way. I'm sick and tired of sipping wine and watching the bubbles. How did our dreams fall out of line, land us in trouble? Well, honey, if you're yearning, there's a fire still burning. Meet me where they play the blues. Eyes that flirt with a tear and come on round here, and misery loves company, they say. So we linger till dawn while the saxophone wails on, and I'm hoping you'll happen this way. I'm sick and tired of sipping wine and watching the bubbles. How did our dreams fall out of line, land us in trouble? Well, honey, if you're yearning, there's a fire still burning. Meet me where they play. Well, I want you where they play. Meet me where they play. The blues. I wake up in the morning, I get out of bed and drag my makeup on. I walk out on the streets, my every exit covers. I hitch up my pants, I'll fake it just like a man. Every hold I had on time, every dream I thought was mine, it's all quite forgotten now. I'm lost without the double cross of you. Like my coffee, I've grown cold. I stay behind and fade into the wall. I'm lost amongst the jostling crowds at lunchtime. I'm hoping you'll come, I know that you won't even call. Every hold I had on time, every dream I thought was mine, it's all quite forgotten now. I'm lost without the double cross of you. I'm lost without the double cross of you. My social smile comes out again, my glass in hand, I've a word for one and all. But deep inside I'm crying like a baby. I'm all grown up, I never learned how to crawl. Every hold I had on time, every dream I thought was mine, it's all quite forgotten now. I'm lost without the double cross of you. Every hold I had on time, every dream I thought was mine, it's all quite forgotten now. I'm lost without the double cross of you. Every hold I had on time, every dream I thought was mine, it's all quite forgotten now. walking on the beach when I went down for a swim. I hadn't got my dogs with me. I wanted to strip off and go in. I knew he knew what I wanted to do, but still he wouldn't go. He stood and watched the show. I was sitting at the bar, having had a lot to drink. I was talking to this guy, he'd only just come in, I think. And my head was spinning around, and when I tried to go, well, he stood and watched the show. I was walking him back home, and I asked him to come in. Well, I thought that I should take the chance, although his legs were a little bit thin. I tried to get through to him using every trick I know, but he stood and watched the show. He stood and watched the show. The show. He stood and watched the show. He stood and watched the show. Yeah. Every day seems quieter than the one that went before. The silence seeping through me slows my senses more and more. Each movement is an effort, and I just sit beside the sea and watch the lone cow in the meadow soil the grass on which she feeds. You know it's frightening, like stepping through a door. You're standing there alone and nothing is known about you've always done. You know it's frightening when the door has just been slammed. You're standing there alone and nothing is left of what you've always known. On that day you left, but still my love for you remains. I had to keep what I don't want. There's nothing more to give away. And all of this is such a strange affair. You got up, I had to pay. If you cannot talk, you cannot share. And there is nothing more to say. At the country fair dance, they were having romance. They were eating and drinking and dancing. Well, a heated exchange is not unusual or strange, and soon them ugly looks turned into ugly actions. Well, she was pretty, you might say, least they thought so anyway, but she'd never meant a man to war or slaughter. And them flashing black eyes made two young men rise and had a sudden strange effect on each other. There was Porcupine Paul, a man feared by all. He drank away all of his money and all of his reason. And there was fearsome Fred Ford. He was restless and he was bored and he was tired of waiting for the hunting season. On the floor lay Pamela Pearl. She was fearsome Fred's girl, but she didn't mind being dragged under the table. And when Fred broke it up, the man he found on top was Paul, doing all he was able. Well, Fred said, look here, take your hands off that brazier. We're gonna have ourselves a little shooting. And he's a-hitching up his pants, and he's adopting this masochistic stance, and the crowd starts yelling and hooting. Well, Paul knew he was beat if he ever got to his feet, so he fired from the horizontal position. Fred was hit, the dust was bit, and with an amazing exhibition of true grit, he fired his gun and accomplished his mission. Our Pearl adjusted her lace with an expression of grief and horror on her face. She said, it sure is grief and horror that I'm feeling. Well, everybody was aghast at what had come to pass. Even the card players looked up and stopped their dealing. Woo! I want to be seduced. I want a man to take me out to dinner. I'd like to see his eyes get moody, thinking about the thought of what flirting's gonna do. I want him to be real cool. I want him to think about getting me right into bed. Have a chat about wearing condoms. Don't flutter my heartstrings, Jesus, that won't fit me. He said I might demur politely, but very slightly, if he tried to fondle my knee. But I'm relatively certain I'd compromise if I know me. I want to be seduced. I want a man to talk to me suggestively. I'd like to hear him say he'll be with me tomorrow morning, drinking hot jasmine tea. I want him to make me laugh. I want him to make a point of touching me when we talk, leaving all the jealous boys at the bar to mumble in their beer and gawk. You know it only happens when I'm napping, nodding in reverie. But I wouldn't mind a man who wouldn't mind seducing right from the minute that we'd been introduced. I wouldn't mind a man who wouldn't mind seducing me. Twas up the road on Easy Street. I was standing round watching everybody cheat. Man says, hey, move along back to the corner where you belong, 'cause Mama just wants to barrel house all night long. Hear the city screaming like a siren choir. Some fool tried to set this town on fire. The TV preacher screams, come on along. But I feel like Fairy, face to face with King Kong. And Mama just wants to barrel house all night long. Sometimes I wonder just who I am. I feel like I'm living in a hologram. It doesn't seem to matter what's right or wrong, 'cause everybody's grabbing at me and they're coming on strong. And Mama just wants to barrel house all night long. Oh, Mama just wants to barrel house all night long. In a rundown little tavern back in old Galway town, where the boys and me would practice every day. Over in the square amongst his cronies there, Big Jodel and his mandolin held sway. Occasionally dropping to buy another bottle, until the day he joined in our strange song. Since then we've been together one night stands in stormy weather, and after all the souped up cocktails, this is all that's left to say. Delaney's gone back on the wine. Too many years he's been marching in time. Now he's like all the other bums. Well, he's sorry, but he's glad to be alone. He didn't move out right away. Spent most of his evenings tearing out his hair, while the kids just stared, and we moaned about who really cares. And when we were starry-eyed, and all our friends were lapping up our style, but now the Blitz has hit town. There's nobody around. There's nobody around. Delaney's gone back on the wine. Too many years he's been marching in time. Now he's like all the other bums. Well, he's sorry, but he's glad to be alone. All our friends were lapping up our style, but now the Blitz has hit town. There's nobody around. There's nobody around. Delaney's gone back on the wine. In a few years it won't feel like such a crime. So farewell lounge bar blues. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm glad to be alone. There ain't nothing that I do, and there ain't nothing that I say that folks don't criticize me. But I'm going to do just as I want to anyway. And I don't care what people say. If I should take the notion to jump into the ocean, it ain't nobody's business what I do. If I go to mass on Sundays and get divorced all day Mondays, it ain't nobody's business what I do. If my man ain't got no money and I say take all mine, honey, ain't nobody's business what I do. And if he takes my last nickel and it leaves me in a pickle, ain't nobody's business what I do. I'd rather my man would quit me than for him to jump up and hit me, and it ain't nobody's business what I do. And I swear I will call the Gardaí if I get beat up by my daddy. It ain't nobody's business what I do. If my man ain't got no money and I say take all mine, honey, ain't nobody's business what I do. And if he takes my last nickel and it leaves me in a pickle, ain't nobody's business what I do. It ain't nobody's business what I do.
Mary Coughlan, you're very welcome to Hearn's Hotel in Clonmel.
Well, thanks, Gerry. I'm delighted to be here after the year that we've had.
Yeah, we came together today for a little celebration of Tired and Emotional.
Yeah, which we've been talking about for a long time.
We did. We had a gig planned last year for the 35th anniversary of
Yeah.
it. I think on 2 or 3 different occasions.
That's right, yeah.
And each time, as everything has been, we've had to cancel it and put it off. So it's now into the 36th year. So
Yeah, it was nice doing all of those. I mean, of course I do 1 or 2 of them every night, you know, on a gig. Well, you know, when I was doing gigs, but some of those songs I haven't done. Sense of Silence I haven't done. I'd say the last time I did it was The Bag It In 1987.
yeah.
And yeah, that was kind of, it was weird.
Revisiting
Because
it
all
again.
the stuff, because I knew I was coming here this week, all the stuff from that time has been coming up, you know, all the
Yeah.
memories.
Yeah, yeah.
And the whole time around making that album. And believe it or not, Barry, the bass player that we have here today, he's in my band now. Barry's Uncle Gerald
Right.
owned the studio in Greenfields in
Right.
Headford where we recorded the album, but Barry wasn't even born.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so funny that he's here. You
Being
know,
a part of the
being a part of
recollection.
this.
Yeah.
And he told his uncle, they were at a family thing there a while ago, he said he was coming down and he had been telling him stories about the studio, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So which was really funny, yeah.
Yeah, 1985, I suppose. I'm kind of going to concentrate on the year 1985 from the start to the finish when the album was released and went to #1. But I suppose pre-Tired and Emotional, can you give us a sense of your life then before you kind of started on the road of singing those songs?
Yeah, well, I left home just after my leaving cert and I went to live in London for a couple of years. I had a job in British Student Travel, and then I had a job as a street sweeper. I was the first female street sweeper in London. I met my first husband there, Fintan, and we had planned on, you know, traveling the world and going off to India and Morocco and all those places. All our mates were going. But two things happened. I got pregnant, and as you do, and his mother became really ill. So we ended up back in Galway, and we stayed. We rented a house in Salt Hill in Galway, and we were down a pub called the Cottage Bar one night in Salt Hill. It was a session, and I would have been doing the odd song at a session.
Yeah.
You know, like, but always a trad song because I loved Dolores Keane, you know, and I
Right.
used to do whatever. And there was a very tall guy there one night. His name was Eric Visser. He was like 6'7" or something. He was playing the guitar, and he was quite imposing, his whole, you know, thing. And 2 days later, he moved in with us.
Right.
Yeah. And we shared houses with Eric for a number of years after that. And he married a friend of mine, Antoinette Hensey. And I had really moving on here. I had a car crash when I was pregnant with that first daughter,
Right.
Aoife. And I broke my pelvis. I was knocked down when I was crossing the road. And I was really banged up in a really bad way. I was 12 weeks in hospital. So I was 6 months pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
Back in the day before scans or anything. So Eric was the only one who wasn't doing anything except music. And he would come to the hospital every day and we'd talk, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he wrote a tune for Aoife, called Aoife. After she was born, he wrote it while I was pregnant. And it was on his first album he did with Polydor in Holland, which sold, I don't know, 5 or 6 million copies.
Okay.
And that established him. And he was absolutely huge star. Holland and Germany, Belgium, Japan, Chile, for some reason. And he had a band called Fleric, and they travelled the world. And then Anto, the wife, got fed up living in Holland. She couldn't walk down the street, but people would be stopping them. So they moved back to Galway. And he said, okay, he said, let's do something.
Yes.
And that was in 1984. And I was living in a place called Lakewood Park, and Fintan and I had split up. I had 3 kids. I had various jobs around Galway. I was cleaning offices with Margaretta Darcy. I was cleaning windows. My uncle was a painter, and we used to take the varnish off the windows. And I was knitting hats with an American woman called Linda Tauba. She was making these they became very famous hats, black hats with rainbows across the middle. And I hadn't a clue.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I would be singing, as I said, the odd song, and I would be singing around the house. So
But nothing formal. It was
nothing
still
formal,
sort of,
no,
yeah.
nothing at all. So he said, you know, so we started practicing songs.
Taking it a bit serious.
Taking it a bit serious, which was like, what do you mean practice it? He said, well, you know, if you're a painter, you paint. If you want to be a singer, you have to sing.
Right.
I said, okay. So he would come to the house, and and then he started to write songs. Himself and Antoinette
Yeah.
wrote songs, The Beach being one of them.
I think 2 or 3 of the songs on
Yeah.
Tired and Emotional.
Yeah, and Finton wrote one when we had split up called The Double Cross. I had been listening to Billie Holiday like for years. I wanted to put on a Billie Holiday song. He said, "Yeah, but nobody wanted to hear. Nobody knew about Billie Holiday really in Ireland. It wasn't a thing people were listening to, and Warner Brothers were afraid of it, you know.
Yeah.
And now that
Go mad
be all
for it.
over it, you know. So we did Nobody's Business. We found the Meet Me where they played the blues was on an old 78 that we had somewhere. Jack Teagarden.
Right.
So it came together, and many funny stories.
Yeah, and I think you recorded an EP, a 3-track EP then, didn't you, around that?
You know, when Tired and Emotional was finished, I had met Dennis Desmond, and I had been ringing Ollie Jennings. Now, in fairness, Ollie Jennings he ran a place called Smoky Joe's Cafe in Galway, and he had, Mary Black was huge at the time, Maura O'Connell.
Yeah.
She had a band, and myself and Eric did support for Mary and Maura, which was kind of funny when Eric was selling out like 10,000 seater stadiums. And we started to do support and for Declan Sinnott and Honor Heffernan another night. And then Ollie asked me if I'd like to do the Flying Pickets in Dublin, in Galway in the Great Southern, and Freddie White in Dublin. So we did them, and we started to get noticed.
Okay.
And I had been ringing Dennis Desmond's office every day because Ollie said, "You need this guy to manage you."
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, then Dennis just appeared out of the woodwork, and he says, "I've been hearing things about you and all that, you know." So Dennis started to manage me, and then the success of Tired and Emotional, he said, "You got to do something immediately, you know."
Okay. Yeah.
So I met Jimmy McCarthy, and we did Ancient Rain, that EP,
Yeah.
which was huge as well, you know. So that was it, you know.
Yeah, and I suppose go back then a little bit to around March. You got a big break then and got on the Late Late Show in, I think, around March 1985. Again,
Yeah,
before
Shea Healy and Siobhan, I forget her second name for the minute. Shea Healy was doing a thing called Sounds Promising on the radio on RTE, and you would send in a tape, and he was playing the tape. The Double Cross was on it, and a couple of other things. Meet Me Where They Play the Blues, I think. And we sent it up to RTE, and we got a phone call to say, would we like to come up to Studio 8 to do a proper recording session?
which was a massive thing.
Oh my God, it just stopped,
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah.
But then Gay Byrne, they were listening. They were listening with the door open in the radio, and Gay was doing his program next door, the radio show. And then he was walking past the corridor, and he said to Shea Healy, "Who's that?" And he said, "It's a mother of 3 in Galway. She's just started singing the blues." And he said, "Oh, could I have, you know, could I pinch her for the Late Late Show?"
Yeah, because Gay was a big jazz fan,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah.
And another coincidence, Peter O'Brien, who became a piano player of mine years later, was teaching Gay the piano for years, you know.
Right.
Every Friday evening he'd go over to RTE and play the piano with Gay. But so we got on the Late Late Show, and the rest is, as they say, history.
Yeah, yeah. And you had one song prepared, and Gay asked you to do another song.
We had Meet Me Where They Play the Blues, and he said, "Would you have another one?" And we didn't, you know, because, you know, I was, you know, nervous enough to do the one. So he said, "Come over here and sit down beside me," and you know the way he'd be, like this, you know. You'll be Gay, and I, you know, and I was like, like this, and he said, do you think you'd be able to sing another one? I said, "Well, I could sing Strange Fruit." And I'd never sung Strange Fruit in my life.
But you knew the words of it.
I knew the words, and I sing it around the house.
Right.
I'd be washing nappies to it and everything.
Yeah.
So he said, "The Strange Fruit?" And I said, "Yeah." And I just started singing, and all the lights went down in the studio. And when I woke up, when I opened my eyes, the place was like dark.
Yeah.
And I think people remember that more so than the other song, you know.
Yeah, because it's much more powerful. Hairs in the Back of the Neck song, that one.
Yeah. So that was me.
So then you weren't too far from after that. Then you went to Headford to record Tired and Emotional.
Tired and Emotional was done. We had it done at the time, I think, because we did it in like June and July. I can't remember which came before the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Anyway, we Headford Studios in Galway, Greenfield Studios in Headford, and Gerry was the engineer. He worked in the bank in the AIB, and he worked all night long. Music was his passion. The bank was the day job.
Okay.
So we did the album, and
the album was very much a sort of a homegrown affair. Even the artwork, we have a copy there. You picked up these glasses somewhere and just put them on.
the glasses I had. Well, I picked up the glasses at a place in Dublin called a Xanadu,
Right.
and I had a pair, and I was at I was going out with a guy called Frank Miller at the time. He worked for the Irish Times. He's a photographer, and he took he took all the pictures of all the pictures. But I think we were at a wedding, and he just took that picture, and these glasses became just like, people
Trademark.
would say, where'd you get your glasses?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I went back to Xanadu very quickly, and I bought all 42 pairs that she had, she'd gotten them in. Sheila's her name. She still has a shop in Belfast. She got them in a consignment, and they have blue ones and pink ones, and I got my prescription put into them. But people used to steal them.
Right.
So I have 2 pairs left.
Yeah. So
out of all them.
40 pairs disappeared.
40 pairs disappeared, yeah. So, and my clothes used to disappear. People used to design wacky clothes for me, and I was sure I was up for anything in those days.
Yeah.
You go into the bathroom to get your clothes back, they'd be gone in the dressing room door, So.
And I suppose, again, reading about the Tired and Emotional, how it got traction was I know there was some radio shows, and I used to listen to, I think it was Mark Cagney, Night Train.
Mark Cagney started to, I did a gig in Dublin, and there was 4 people at it.
Right.
And in my band was Greg Boland, Matt Kelligan, Keith Donald, and Owen O'Neill from Moving Hearts. They were the band.
Right.
And there was 4 people at the gig, and we're saying, like, what's gone wrong, And but nobody had played anything on the radio.
Yeah.
And Christmas had come and everything, and blah blah blah. So then Mammy rang me one night, and she said, "Mary, you're on the radio. You're on the radio." It was like about 11:30. She used to go to bed with the transistor.
Yeah.
I turned on the radio, and Mark Cagney played the whole side of the album.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Mike Maloney would play another side.
Yeah.
And they did that for a week, and the following week, the people were queuing up.
Yeah.
It was the power of radio and television at the time. People were literally queuing up, hundreds of people trying to get into gigs.
And then it suddenly broke then.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah. And then the roller coaster began.
Yeah, that's for another year,
Yeah.
I was working in Ireland then, non-stop. We were on the road 5-6 nights a week, playing all over the country.
Yeah, because you had to capitalise when it became big.
Yeah, but I didn't know anything about this business,
Yeah.
And but I learned fairly quick.
Yeah.
And then around that time, Dennis started to come into the picture, and then he said, we look for a venue in London,
Yeah.
And before long, we were doing, 7 nights in London, 7 nights in a row.
Mean Fiddler.
We did the I used to do Mean Fiddler, Sadler's Wells, the Dominion, Tottenham Court Road.
Yeah.
I did them all in 1 month.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were so many different kind of people.
Yeah.
I did a week in Ronnie Scott's.
Right.
And I didn't really know how iconic a place it was, but the sound was really bad.
Right.
And I said, I'm not coming back here, And they said, well, they've just offered you another 7 nights. And I said, if they put in some monitors, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I thought I was getting ahead of myself. But it was a jazz club.
Yeah.
And there were no monitors, and it was an acoustic thing.
Yeah.
So we ended up doing another 7 nights there. And then festivals started coming, and then Europe.
Yeah.
Germany, and Scandinavia. I would work for 10 weeks in Scandinavia.
Just on the trot.
Yeah. In a tour bus with 14 people.
Right.
So that would have been 87,
Okay, so it was relatively quick from 85.
Oh, stop.
Yeah.
It was like
just
mad,
a whirlwind. Yeah.
And I was living in a small house in Galway, and I moved to the Bailey in Howth.
Right.
Bought a house on 2.5 acres of land up beside Gabo.
Okay.
It was like just mental,
Yeah. Just in a very short time.
2 years.
Yeah. And it's the power of the album, really. Absolutely. It's to me, it's an iconic album. It's.
You know, I took it out the other day to listen to it to freshen up on some of the words, and I sound so innocent on it. I mean, and I was.
Raw, it sounds raw almost nowadays, yeah.
It would have been like, I mean, I remember in the studio, your man said, how are your cans? I said, what's he talking about, you know? And, you know, another time I remember walking away from the microphone, and the headphones were pushed into there was a little thing there, a monitor that you could turn yourself up and down, and I dragged the whole out. I forgot that I was attached to headphones, you know. I hadn't a clue what was going on, you know. And there was notes that I found hard to pitch, and like there were no machines in those days, you know. I kept a T-shirt that I was wearing for some of the studio, and I had holes because I used to do this, you know. Do things like I used to be so nervous. And I had like a T-shirt, black T-shirt with about 20 holes in the middle of it, sticking my finger through it, try to get up to notes, you know. You know.
But would you have been a natural singer in that period? And you know, was it easy to sing all the variety of songs? You didn't have to. Well, I had, as I said, when I sang first, I was doing some songs that Dolores Keane had been singing with Giadanan, and I would sing Billie Holiday songs around the house. But that SOS song and a few of those, they were a little bit tricky to sing, you know. I didn't really know, but I just learned them and sang them, you know. And then you stuck with some standards like the Barrel House and Seduced.
Bruce Coburn wrote Barrel House. Seduced was Gerry Tigerman. I wrote to him. He sent me a few songs there a while ago. People thought it was outrageous that a woman in 1985 in Ireland would sing I Want to Be Seduced. And when I changed all the words to the Billie Holiday song, I'd rather my man would quit me. She had said, I'd rather he hit me than for him to quit me. And all the stuff about it. And I used to say, may divorce be with you at the end of every concert, you know. And I Want to Be Seduced. I lay down outside the forecourts of Dublin in front of the traffic. And when Ivana Bacik, who's now elected, when she was charged with disseminating propaganda, which was the telephone number of the family planning clinic in Dublin, and she was just in the Students' Union in Trinity, and she was given little pieces of paper out to women if they wanted family planning, and she was charged with a crime. It was a crime. So I went and lay down on the street and sang I Want to Be Seduced. And that was, you know, it was all kind of, the writing was on the wall. I was going to be trouble.
And I suppose even songs like The Beach maybe were songs women were not supposed to be singing, or, you know, the subject matter in them days.
Yeah, well, you know, I was like, it was all about, you know, I suppose really in those days you would, it was more traditional, wasn't it, you know? It was still very, very traditional for women to be asked out and, you know, and not to be doing the asking, you know. Certainly in Galway, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, you know.
And then he songs like Nobody's Business, which is another, you know, I do what I want to do. That's great. Well, thanks very much, Mary, for sharing your thoughts on the songs on the album.
It's a bit nostalgic now this evening. And thanks for the lovely picture. So I know that somebody made a charcoal painting of this. I shall frame it and put it on the wall at home.
Thank you for coming down to Clonmel and sharing it. It's been a treat really for us, and the whole idea of it was to pick some iconic Irish albums and celebrate them, because I suppose in these times, normally when you do albums, you just look forward the whole time. You never really look back. So it's nice.
No, it's a thing. I'm really delighted to have done it.
Thank you.
Thank you.